say our seats and get ready. Okay, so my name is Gary J. Hicks. I'm one of the organizers for this event. So I'm going to start off by saying thank you to everyone who's attending. Hope you're ready to listen. So I want to start off by introducing Laura Agostini, who's the Chief Talent Officer here at the APT, to say a few words.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. I wrote some notes because I tend to just talk, and I think, wow, I really wanted to say that. So give me your patience to read some notes, because I think it's really important. First, thank you for your patience in getting up for security. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So first of all, we really are glad that you're here, and we're excited to be able to host the Truth Panel here. Our very own Kenny Thacker came up with the idea, and we wanted to support him, because the idea of diversity and inclusion is so important to everyone here at Jabil Thompson, and we can always do more. Advertising is all about telling a story, right? It's our client's story, it's our brand story, but it's also our story. And we want to tell our stories to influence change. And we know it works. We've seen it in the past. Some of you may have been at the 3% conference that just was hosted in Chicago. And that conference started with a story. Kat Gordon, if you don't know her, look her up, was a female creative director. And at the time, she looked around and she said, no one looks like me. They're all men. And she did a survey and she found out that only 3% of creative directors were women. And she said, that's just not good enough. So she told her story, and her story was that we have to do better, we can do better. And she said, I want to change the ratio. And if you look at her site today, you will see that she's done that. If you look across our industry in North America, instead of 3% women, it's closer to 12 and 14. And in JBT New York, I'm really thrilled that we're closer to a third. So she changed the ratio by telling her story. But she also said that's not good enough, because not only are women excluded from some of the really important roles in our industry, people of color are too. And so she said, I want to change the ratio, not just for women, I want to change it for people of color. And my goal, my wish, my dream is that there's parity. There's no discussion about percentages, where we're lacking, where we're failing. It's that everyone has a chance, female, people of color, to be in the industry and to do what they want to do. So what I'm really excited about is we have a chance today to tell our stories. And every story matters. And every story is a story to be told. And ultimately what we want to do is not only tell the story, but we want to act on it. And so that everything we do in telling our story is about what do we do now? How do we act? How do we take any action, big or small, and change our industry and do what Kat did? Let's change the ratio, and I'm so thrilled that Kenny and Gary are here to help us start that conversation. Gary, thank you.
Thank you very much. So, now there are a couple of ground rules here, real quick. If you're in here, you're a family, so this is going to be, while it's going to be some story time at the beginning, we want it to be very conversational, because there's a lot of things that people are going to talk about that people are experiencing now, have experienced, or may experience in the future. So be ready with your questions after story time is over. Second rule, just be prepared to get these bars. That's what's about to happen. All right, so I'm going to introduce three amazing people, three amazing friends, three change agents in this industry. And I'm going to consult my phone because I have the formal introductions here so that I don't just ramble on and on about it right now. So first up, I would like to introduce Kai Lawson. Kai used to run on Catholic culture and 8 years of experience experience in advertising to tell honest stories that shed light on the need for diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Her experience led her to launch the culturally focused platform Mixed Company Podcast as a co-host and her blog, My Life of Kai. On these platforms, she shares her first-hand experiences in life, travel, career from the perspective of a millennial woman of color. Second up, Mariam Guessous. Mariam is a creative director and creative entrepreneur living and loving in Brooklyn, New York. She is the founder of I See You Wellness, a platform that exists to empower communities of color through accessible wellness and radical self-care. And Majorite, a creative agency dedicated to serving brands and entrepreneurs with a mission. She's passionate about diversity and social good, and after spending years in the ad agency world, she left in 2017 to pursue her passions of healing, educating, and empowering communities in the ad industry and beyond. She is on a mission to ignite a spark within individuals so we can collectively rise to our purpose and power. Also, her work has been featured in Ad Color, the Art Directors Club Global, the 3% Conference, and the One Club for Creativity. And last, but certainly not least, we have Kenny Thacker. Kenny is our moderator, and understand that there are 5 types of thinkers: creative thinkers, analytical thinkers, intuitive thinkers, logical thinkers, and visionary thinkers. Kenny has defined the belief that an individual can only be one of those types and truly encompasses all 5. He's committed his heart and soul to his tireless quest to level the playing field for diverse talent. Kenny takes nothing and makes something out of it. While everyone sits around and talks, and talks,
It's true, though.
and talks about the lack of diversity, Kenny does something about it. Kenny's an award-winning influencer, diversity associate devoted to outreach programs and mentorship. In 2017, he was named as one of the 4A's 100 people that make advertising great. He's the ultimate example of an individual dedicated to making a change in today's ad industry and society, helping us all think differently. So one more round of applause for everyone.
Thank you, Gary. Give it up for Gary, everyone. So how's everybody doing tonight? Everybody good? Everybody good? I mean, this is like probably one of the best looking crowds I've seen since Saturday. I was hosting something on Saturday. I was like, y'all look really good. But I was like, come Wednesday, like, you know, somebody's getting engaged up in here. So. My name is Kenny Thacker, and definitely welcome everyone to JWT New York, JWT Worldwide. We are very lucky to have you all here in this moment, and we want you to learn from this moment. One of the first things I said to Laura when I was talking to her about this event was that life is full of teachable moments, and when both of my sisters here wrote their pieces, I hope, did anyone read Mariam's I Can's Not article, blog post? Yeah. So some of you read
You guys can Google it too.
We'll send homework. And then Kai's piece, I quit my job about 3 weeks ago. Y'all know that. Immediately, I was like, how can this happen almost a year apart? I was like, there's a problem. There's a big problem. And due to the fact that, you know, they're 2 of my favorite people, I was like, damn it, again? So someone on a social media platform called me out. They were like, Kenny Thacker, what you gonna do? I was like, give me 2 days. It wasn't even 2 days. I text Gary immediately. I was like, Gary, I gotta do something. We gotta talk about this. This isn't right. So Gary's like, you're right, this isn't right. There's no reason why 2 females of color should have to go through this. There's no reason why any woman in this industry should have to go through this. And as men, we had to kind of check our privilege and be like, no, this shouldn't be happening. So the best way to even describe what I thought about the panel, I was like, I'm just gonna call it truth. Plain and simple. No acronyms, no nothing fancy. No, I'm not gonna get super creative about this. I'm just gonna call it truth. And I'm gonna bring these 2 great young women in to share their truth. So that's what we're gonna do now. Y'all ready for some truth? So I'm pretty sure some of you picked up the handout as you checked in today, and it kind of like gave you the whole timeline of what it's like to be a woman of color in the workplace. So I'm not even talking about just advertising in period. I'm talking about in the workplace and how you kind of come in and things are like pretty good, and then after a while you're like, things aren't really going the way I thought they were gonna go. And then you kind of think to yourself like, okay, how am I gonna circumnavigate the system and still be true to myself, et cetera, et cetera. But then there comes a point where you're like, this ain't for me. So we're gonna talk about those journeys today. We're gonna talk about those stories today, because one thing JWT has done well for the last over 150 years is tell really good stories. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be around for the last 150 years. Can I get an amen? Amen. Thank you. So I'm just gonna start off with the first section of our conversation. It's called Intro to Advertising. Intro to Advertising. So Mariam, Kai, and I'll start with Kai because you're so far away from me. Like,
I'm sorry, but I'm closer to these folks.
you're close to the left.
It's all good.
Yeah, party on the left. You control the left.
Listen, this is team effort here. This is a whole project.
By the way, if anyone didn't understand what bars were, I had to. It's me. Y'all know me.
2 people.
Bars are parts in a song, and like the parts that make you feel the best. So like, you know, Elton John's got bars from our white brothers and sisters out there. You know, Barry Manilow's got bars. Eminem's got bars. Okay, we're up to date on bars. Can I get an amen? All right, let's go. So Kai, can you tell me what were your thoughts before entering the advertising industry? Give me that journey.
Yeah, I wanted nothing to do with advertising before I got into it. I studied production in college, and I used to tell my friends and classmates that studied advertising, like, y'all are whack, because advertising is for people that just couldn't get into entertainment. Because I was cocky, and I'm still not wrong. We would all like to work at a record label and put forth creative that we see on MTV and all the Viacom stations, but that is not necessarily what we do. So I was completely stuck up and a snob. I was an entertainment snob, and I just wanted nothing to do with it. However, what had happened was when you graduate from college and you realize, like, you know, if no one paid for your schooling, for those of us that are out here and we owe all kinds of aunties from Nellie and Sally that we don't know, you got bills. And entertainment and record labels don't have money. They are broke. And that was 2010, 2011. So 2010, 2011, the only people that had budgets were on the ad side. And I was here to pay bills. And somebody got a hold of my resume. The recruiter was super duper nice to me. I gave them my best spiel about who I was. They fell for it and decided you would make an amazing junior project manager. And I was like, a manager? Yes. And that's how I got here. Facts. I don't have to lie to nobody. I don't know none of y'all that well. This is true.
So, Mariam, what encouraged you to pursue, because I mean, well, I know you, some people in here know you. What encouraged you to pursue a career in advertising?
So I knew that I wanted to be in advertising since I was 15. I grew up in Morocco, so I didn't know the industry here in the US. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I wanted to speak to the world, to spread the message, to bring people together. That was what drew me to advertising, the idea that we can speak to the masses and have that much power to do good and to spread positive messages and whatnot. So at 15, I decided I wanted to be advertising. At 18, I moved to the US to study advertising. My whole life was advertising, advertising, advertising. That's what I wanted to do, and I did. And, you know, things went south, but now they're, you know,
We'll get to
north.
that. So, and I'm just going to jump back to Kai real quick. Kai, when you started that first job, how accessible do you feel like your leadership was to you? Do you feel like, I mean, because like everyone can have a relationship that I have with Laura, but you know.
Fair, but I did.
Okay.
My first experience, in retrospect, because at first I couldn't get over working for a straight 8 to 10 hours. That was ridiculous after only being in class for 45 minutes every other hour. But my leadership, when I did start, they were very accessible, and we kind of had an offline discussion amongst ourselves where I mentioned like they prepared me for the business. One of the first things my first supervisor told me was that as a project manager, you are going to be the only one that learns the business from the ground up, because you're the only one that has the that gets to interact with every discipline every day for every project.
Okay.
So if there's anybody that is going to know what's going to bring success for a project, for a team, for a program, it's you, and that is something for you to like be proud of. And a few months later, I actually got the opportunity to follow up and try out my skills as an account executive. And it was cool. There's a couple people in here that remember those days. But even there, like just I don't want to call it hand-holding, but the support. It was probably one of it was definitely the first time I ever felt supported and that people wanted to see me succeed. And so I thought, oh, you're so whack for not thinking about advertising sooner. You totally should have been here. The people are so great. And I was wrong. That was just like a really unicorn moment for me.
Cool. So, as both of you know, and Mariam, you know, we've talked about a lot, of kayaks, we've talked about a lot too, is the whole thing with diversity in bringing, you know, people of color in. Bringing people of color in, and different agencies use different tactics. What tools do you think agencies could use right now to kind of bring in? Because we're going to talk about the retention part in a couple minutes, but I definitely want to talk about how we bring them in. What tools do you think they need to kind of sharpen to bring in more diverse talent?
You want to go first?
Mariam, you want to take it?
I have one word, just pay them well.
Amen.
Well, that's more than a word, but you know, money.
Thank you, Kelly.
I mean, it's low-hanging fruit, but it's real. Like, the bills don't go away because your budgets are tight. Like, we still have to sustain and survive. So,
Pay them,
is
promote
essential.
them, listen.
You know, all the things you
Just
want.
basic things.
Train on
Train.
all the things you're looking for as a leader. Same thing you're looking for, your juniors are looking for. So, sounds fair to me.
So, in as much as I read about, you know, just to sharpen my own knives in my brain, I constantly see the word cultural fit all the time, and it makes me want to pull a little bit of hair I have on my head out.
You're doing well.
Yes, but this is long for me. For those that work at JWT, know it's low. Bruce knows. How much of a cultural fit did you feel you were at that first or second agency?
First one, in the first few months, I wasn't a cultural fit, but I also wasn't ostracized, if that makes sense. I was new to this industry, I was new to expectations. Everything around me was new, and I was more rough around the edges than I am today, if that's possible to believe. It's true. My second agency, I quickly started to understand the negative effects to that. Like, my first experience, it was cool, it was okay to be different. Everybody was different. My second experience, you were different, and therefore you are a danger, and you are you can't sit with us. I had a whole Mean Girls moment while I was there. That's not funny. Somebody laughed. That's not, it still hurts. I didn't wear pink on Wednesdays.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna share the cultural fit thing. When my first job, I definitely wasn't a cultural fit, but it didn't really bother me. I mean, for me, I'm like, okay, people are different. I am too. I'm just here to be myself. And then a couple months in, I was told that I couldn't be myself, like literally. Like, no, you can't. And I was told that it's not the way I am, and I am pretty outspoken. For those who know me, I don't really care. I'm a creative. My job is to create. My job is to say what I need to say. My job is to share my ideas. And I was told that the way I am, my attitude is too much, and I need to see a psychiatrist.
Like a doctor?
True. Yeah. My creative director called me. He's like, we need to have coffee today. It's an emergency. I'm like, oh my God, am I getting like a promotion or something? What's happening?
You're getting a prescription.
Right. So yeah, and he with a straight face told me, like, the way you are, your attitude is just too much for a junior, because I'm confident. I've always been, and that's just who I am. And I'm, don't have to explain myself. But he basically was like, yeah, I think you should see a psychiatrist. It's not normal. The way your attitude is not normal. Yeah. So that was 2 months in my career.
Wow. Well, I've heard stories, both stories. Actually, in Kai, the Mean Girl story, I mean, I heard a story like that literally last week from someone.
Oh, it's real. I wasn't lying.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I was from.
I'm just backing you up. So so we just discussed these young ladies, like, getting into the industry, their first feelings getting into the industry, what they experienced during those either first agency or second agency. So as that diagram kind of shows, there's a part in the time where you're at said agency when things just get weird. And you don't really understand why they just do. And there's a lot of things you have to think about when they do get weird, because a good friend of mine, actually, over there, fellow JWTer, Mashida in the back, she makes films about mental illness. And you really have to think about your mental health when shit gets weird. You really, really do, because if your mental health is suffering, your work will suffer. So right now we're going to talk about when shit gets weird. So my first question is, I want you to take me to that moment, Mariam, when you felt like you weren't being treated like everyone else or fairly. Can you get us there?
I mean, it was exactly that moment 2 months in when I'm sitting there with my creative director. I thought he was joking. I was just like, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean? But that's when I knew that the message was, you can't be yourself. If you want to be here, you have to edit yourself, edit your being, you have to, the way he put it, what I understood was, you have to do as you're told and nothing else. And anything else is inappropriate. And I thought that was crazy, because I'm a creative and my job is to come up with ideas and share them and talk about them and all these things. But he was very clear that that was not acceptable, and then things went south after that. That was the first thing that happened to me in my career, but they were like, I could write 10 books about all the instances that just got me like, wow, this is crazy. But in those moments is when you realize, okay, at first you think it's you, and especially as a junior, and you might internalize it, but you quickly realize, like, this has nothing to do with you. It's not you, and you have to take care of your mental health, like you said.
Kai, take us to your situation.
Yeah, mine was really early in my career, past the honeymoon stage. And it was my first business trip, so I was hyped. Somebody sent a car to my house to pick me up, to take me to the airport. I got a little company card, so I just knew I was the shit. And I was working on a very high-profile client with one of the more high-profile teams, and I was ready. My group account director was remote in another city, So we had never actually met face to face. We've only, at that point, had only spoken on the phone. And leading up to this trip to see this client in a far off land, it was in the States, but it was, I mean, it's a trip. He asked me to put together a presentation on process because he wants me to share what my approach to process was and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I want to do a presentation in front of a client about process. So I put it together, and I was trying to like get in touch with him. We had met. So what happened was he finally came to the New York office, and we met. And I thought everything was great. So I was trying to get time on his calendar to show him what I've done so far. And I couldn't seem to find time on his calendar. No one could seem to schedule anything. And I was like, it's hard to still work hard on this and make sure that it's put together and it's lit. And we get to the next city, we get to the client city, and I'm still trying to like find time on his calendar, and I can't get time on his calendar. I can barely get 2 minutes to speak to him in person. And I stay up refining the presentation till like 2 in the morning. And head off to, like, I didn't go. This just hit me. Everybody else went out that night for drinks, and I was like, nope. I got a whole presentation I'm about to work on because I'm trying to kill it. And we get to the client's office the next day, and before I sit down, he pulls out his laptop and he shows me the presentation he put together, and he says, well, this is what we're going to go with. And I was like, all right, well, maybe, schedule was busy, you didn't have time, maybe you wasn't sure, maybe it's me, it's fine. He was like, feel free to chime in if you want. And at first I didn't take it personally because I just thought, it's me, maybe I didn't go hard enough to meet with him, maybe I didn't reach out, maybe I should have sent the 12th email and not just 11, maybe I could have done a whole bunch of things, but it's okay as long as I got to be in the client meeting. In retrospect, if the only thing that changed was after we met, I don't know what it is that he saw about me, but there was something that he wasn't feeling about me. And that is when our relationship changed. And that is when I started to recognize that I was being treated much more differently than my team members who were allowed to make presentations at the table, who were also less senior than other people at the table, who had also been new to the account. And yeah, that was the first moment where I realized like I'm not like everybody else. I'm not seen in the same vein.
Well, one thing Miriam and I talked about last year at Here Are the Black People conference. Any of y'all go to Here Are the Black People this year? All the black people.
It was all people were there.
But all people were there. But one thing Miriam and I discussed on a panel last year is that sometimes I think people don't understand how microaggressive non-physical behavior is. Just like body language. They don't understand how microaggressive body language can be. In Kai's situation, it sounds like, he didn't say it, but he said it. So like we have to be cognizant of that and notice it when it does happen to us. And then kind of be like, is there a problem here? Because that's the only way things are going to change. If we don't speak up, then this behavior will continue. And I'm not having 10,000 of these panels.
And in addition to that, and I don't know how many managers, supervisors, people of leadership, people that are not considered junior are here, but that's a good moment for you to give feedback. Like if you no longer trust your junior's judgment, or your team member's judgment, or you feel that they're not prepared, or you don't feel that they're ready, you keeping it to yourself to just go forth and fix it really does give people a complex. So now they're stuck sitting there assessing themselves, when really that's your job to assess them and give feedback, and to let them know that there's a next time. So that was definitely a moment where he, as a very senior account director, fell short.
So, Sister Miriam, I want to find out because you said, you have books and books and layers and bars of great information about this topic. I want to know what actions you took when you realized this. Like, did you have a long conversation to yourself in the mirror, or did you discuss it because he was your boyfriend at the time, wasn't your husband, now he's your husband. But what actions did you take at first before even addressing it with anyone that you worked with?
So the first action I did was go home. That day when he told me at the coffee shop, I was like, okay, I gotta go. I just kind of had to just leave because it was surreal. So I went home and I told my boyfriend at the time, I mean, he's my husband now, but he's also a creative director, so he's been doing this for years. And I told him what's going on, and he's like, oh no. So he was definitely my rock in being like, there's nothing wrong with you, you keep doing your thing, just go back and do your thing. And so the actions that I took at the time was I needed to talk about this. That was the first thing. I'm like, this is crazy. I came into this industry to just create, yet I have to deal with so much BS by the time I even get to create anything. Even the way I express my ideas weren't okay for them. So the action I did was I started writing on a blog anonymously and just talked about all these things. For years, I wrote about on that blog. I took it down now because now I can speak freely with my name, but that's what I did. For me, the first action was I needed to get it out of my chest and find other people who are dealing with this because I didn't know if it was just me or if it was industry-wide. At that time, the topics of diversity wasn't as hot topic as now. So everyone was in their corners, everyone was like shamed in a way. So that opened up the way for me to find other people and then start other initiatives after that and do so much more work that we've done together, me and Kenny and Kai. That's how we started to organize, right? So that's how I started, just by speaking my truth. Even if I couldn't speak it at work, I was finding an outlet for it to come out.
And I love that answer, because the best thing that I got out of that answer is organized. That's one thing that when I get, crazy emails on all different type of platforms, like, Kenny, how do I start a diversity movement where I work? Because I've seen like the stuff you and your friends do, da 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 da. You have to organize with like minds. That's how it happens. You have to organize with like minds, but also keep this in mind that in order to change the system, you have to change the system. So if you're afraid of change, then don't do it. Don't do it. But you have to challenge that system in order to evoke any type of change. The whole advertising diversity thing, it's a big boulder pushing up a very high mountain. But it can be done, but it's a matter of aligning with like minds and simply getting it done. That's all it takes. I mean, there's going to be times when you're going to be like, oh, this is never going to change. It will change, but it doesn't get changed by people giving up. So definitely take that with you and just think about that, because I know a lot of people feel like, oh, well, we have like this thing, but I don't feel like I'll fit in. Fine, if you don't feel like you fit in, find someone else that doesn't feel like they fit in. That's how it works. So the next question I have is, and this is for you, Kai, and you can pick without any other agencies where you worked. Did you ever feel like you could communicate what you were going through to your direct report?
Yeah, that had a couple of times. I've been lucky enough to work with more amazing people than the assholes that I've worked with. A few years ago, I worked with somebody that actually taught me, we were so close, she taught me how to communicate productively. So I would come to her and just kind of vent and let her know, and they ain't shit, and this is ridiculous, and I'm so sick of it, and I don't even understand, and I know they heard when I said, and she was like, well, did you ask them why? Did you ask them to explain why they felt the way they felt? And I was like, no, you gotta ask people why. And then when they tell you why, because it's your personality or you just need to be told your attitude, or what are some other crazy things people say. It just feels like you're not being a team player, or I'm trying to get more nods, or it feels like whoever told you some crazy shit in the last year and a half or whatever. She was like, you need to ask them for examples. Because people will have a why, but they won't always have an example. And that's where you catch people. Because this is the difference between your feeling, your insecurities, your lack of leadership, your lack of understanding how to play well in the sandbox, your lack of social, whatever, I could go on, but this is your lack of empathy and your lack, wherever it is. If you can't give me a specific moment, a specific day, and a specific time that I did this thing that makes you feel like I'm not good enough, and that's all you. And that like was really important to hear that from somebody that I reported directly into. Because up until that time, people will make you feel like because you're not a director and because you're not a group director or something, or you're not an SVP or whatever, you don't matter and you're just supposed to work. When the reality is, if you could do what I could do, you'd be doing it and you wouldn't have to spend this money on my salary and my benefits. And so that was the moment where like, I kind of realized the little bit of power that I did have, and also realized just how smart I really am and how valuable I really am. But nobody's gonna tell you that, because that's gonna mess up the balance of power. That's gonna let you push back on their lack of power. And I think that was like a really important moment to like have that open and honest discussion with somebody that will check you like, no, you fucked up here, you shouldn't have did that. But to also bring it to your attention, but here is how you have these conversations so you're not just continuing to be mad. Because they get to go home to their wife and kids or whatever. You get to go home feeling bad about yourself and wondering why you didn't get your promotion.
I was just gonna say that it's true that a lot of times a lot of people are projecting their feelings onto you. And we don't really realize it until you're mindful and you start paying attention. And what we do is take it on. You know, it's almost like they throw this trash bag at you and you're like, okay, I'll take it. I'm gonna take it home with me and I'm gonna sleep with it and like, it's gonna be mine. Our job is to realize what trash is not yours and just push it back gently to them and deal with your own trash.
Or maybe not so,
Or just kick it. However you feel at that moment, it doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is it's really important to start understanding that people will project on you. Whether at work, at home, with your friends, in the streets, it doesn't matter. But our job is to know where we stand, know our value, know our worth, know our power, and set that boundary like, nope, your trash cannot come in. This is all you deal with it. And that's how I learned how to deal with this. But it's really, really important to start noticing who's projecting and their own feelings because they don't want to deal with them for themselves. Maybe they're intimidated, maybe they're just, you remind them of somebody. There could be so many things, but it's not your problem to deal with their insecurities or their own feelings. You have your own feelings to deal with. And so understanding the difference between the two is going to be key in you staying in this industry and just functioning, you know?
I 100% agree. So, on that note, when did you know, Mariam, like, you were just at the tipping point? You're at the tipping point and you were like, you know what, enough is enough. Like, take me to that day when you were just like, all right, it was nice knowing you. Actually, it wasn't nice knowing y'all. I'm out.
To be honest, there wasn't one day. There were multiple days over the course of 8 years. It was many days. The first day was the 2 months in. So that, if I could have at the time, I'm an immigrant, so I was on a work visa on top of all this. So at that time, if I could have quit that day, I would have. But then I'm like, well, I came here to study here, I'm supposed to work, finally got a job, parents are watching it, that whole thing. So I felt like I needed to stay and prove myself and at least start my career, I didn't waste all that money in college for nothing. So I've had many days. But the last year was when I decided, you know what? There's no future here, because I still could see future within the industry, not the industry, the agency world specifically. But then I realized there's no future here because I had spent the last 8 years talking about this, organizing, doing all kinds of work and solving all kinds of problems that I didn't create, and that was draining my energy, and I wanted my energy back. I could be so much more creative when I don't have to deal with all this stuff. And so that's what I did. I chose me, instead of choosing to fix problems that I didn't create.
Now, Kai, I want to talk to you about the proactive steps you took professionally to turn things around.
Well, definitely using some of the tips that I had learned from that supervisor, right? So, I mean, we can talk about other people all day, every day, but the fact remains, like, we still got to self-check. I still need to make sure that I did what I felt was best in that situation. I need to make sure that, is there a different way I could have approached the situation? And after I go through, you know, self-assessment, definitely, I mean, it's confrontation, and I say that, and some people cringe because some people don't like confrontation because they weren't raised by Ricky and Sonia, so like they didn't have to get called to the floor to explain themselves. But the second step is to call a meeting. I mean, one great tip I learned was call a status with that person that you're having, that you are feeling tension with or receiving tension from, because again, like, we're all people. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know if you're having a hard time at home, or I don't know if you have to ride the A train all the way from Euclid all the way to 59th Street. Like, that used to make me upset. Like, I get it, you know, but to find some sort of common ground where you guys can, we can personally talk out our differences and then be clear about the work. Like, great, now we know where we are. You rode the A train. You know, it rained and my hair got frizzy, so we mad, but we're gonna let that go and talk about this work. And then when that doesn't work, escalating it to whomever your escalation points are. The main thing for me is always keeping, I keep receipts. Like, Google Docs are my friend, not just because it's convenient, but also because there's a convenience and memory loss that I find that people tend to have in certain, y'all are laughing, so y'all know what it's like. Somebody forgot, they told you to go and deliver this piece of creative, and then when you get your hands slapped, I never said that. Actually, according to this email I have right here that you responded yes to, yes you did. So keeping receipts is always very important. For me, getting email confirmations, like if an email chain goes out and all of a sudden the conversation gets taken offline, we're gonna recap that conversation back in this email thread, because convenient memory loss gets a lot of our hands slapped and has a lot of us out here looking real crazy because now everybody forgot that you had this in-depth conversation where we seemed to be on the same page, but when we went to the big meeting, you was acting like you didn't even read my page, and that's not okay. And then after that, like, if recapping notes doesn't help, and, you know, calling each other to the floor in a productive and respectful manner doesn't help, and self-evaluation doesn't help, it might not be me, it's most definitely you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, of the things you say, the favorite thing I love that you say is keeping receipts.
Oh yes, and invoices.
Yeah,
you know,
I love
and
receipts.
Keep people on red so that you know what time they text you. It's just really important. It's really important.
We'll keep moving. Miriam, so this whole situation, obviously, you know, is an unfavorable one. Looking back, do you think there were any other options that would have worked better than what you chose to do?
In my first job, I chose to stay quiet and suck it up, and do my work offline, you know, get it out of my system offline. But I wish I spoke up on my first job. I did speak in my other jobs a lot, but the first one I internalized it a little bit too much, and so I wish I didn't. I wish I just kept doing me and not edit myself for anybody. So, yeah.
And this question goes to both of you, because I just want to know, were there any mechanisms that those said companies had in place for employees to kind of voice these type of situations to kind of help them through these situations?
In the places I worked at, the first one didn't. It was too small it was just too small. It's a lose-lose situation. I did speak to HR, but she's like, I know, just kind of suck it up. it's just how he
It's
is.
just how it is.
It's just like they're creative directors. Like it's just suck it
It's
up.
part of our culture.
It's just, what are you gonna do? You're a junior. So that was kind of the conversation. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll suck it up. The other organization, which was a big organization, I didn't keep receipts, and then HR ended up.
And they had receipts and invoices
Yeah.
and folders and files.
So I did voice things, and actually the HR person heard it and then acted like she didn't hear it. So I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. Yeah. So yeah, there was no. I feel like there is, but I didn't experience it.
I feel like everyone says they do. And I feel there's probably a lot of people at the places that y'all work that will tell you, you can just come talk to me. Just shoot me an email, maybe get coffee, let's go to lunch. But I don't think that there are enough people within agencies, large or small, that are equipped to deal with the emotional productivity that comes along with the job. I don't think there are enough people senior enough to have seen a lot of the issues that we're bringing to the table to deal with these. And I don't think there are, if there was a bigger word than enough, but there's definitely not enough people that care about the success of others. And not just like one or two people that you like, but like the general success of many people, a group of people, a generation of professionals and their growth. I don't think there's enough people that care about that when you do bring it to the table and you do voice a concern and you do raise your hand, you do all the things and you go to the meetings and blah, blah, blah. I don't think they care enough for it to make a difference. So they're there, they're just not effective.
And I just want to add on that one thing that I noticed my whole career in the agency world, because I'm still doing advertising, but I noticed that there's a huge lack of just humanity and vulnerability. It just blew my mind. Like, I'm like, why does everyone has this mask? Why are they performing this role that I know you don't go home and do this with your wife? I know you don't go home and do this with your cousins.
Yeah, they might.
Some might, true. But the majority, everyone is putting on this mask. And when you show up and you're like, I don't want to put on a mask, I'm happy with this current mask that I have on, then you're expected to join the fakeness, for lack of better words. But the industry is missing basic human vulnerability, where we can just like sit down and have core conversations like humans, for an industry where we get insights, human insights, and translate them into creative and to move people, to create movements. We are lacking in humanity big time. And I think that's the core issue of what we're dealing with, not just diversity, but with the times that Me Too, with diversity, with women, with ageism.
On their titles to get them through and not who they are as people to
Right.
allow them to succeed.
Well, it's a culture that was started by a boys' club, and that was fine. It was started by a boys' club in the 50s, 40s, 50s, but like, why are we doing this now? We're in 2018, so why are people holding on to that culture so badly when it's no longer like that? So the issue is not that we can all coexist, but we can't keep ignoring the facts that everyone is performing this role, everyone is kind of trying to survive, whether they're privileged or not, everyone is just fake. So can we just sit down and have conversations about real things without just the saying what I thought was missing when we talk about diversity in the industry. I haven't heard one agency that would say, you know what, we messed up. We are not doing well. Everyone's trying to say, we're doing it, we're working on it. It's like, just say the truth, you're not, it's not happening. So that level of vulnerability is what we need in order to move forward. And nobody wants to admit the mistake, even though it's obvious to everyone.
I come to work. So my next question for the both of you is, because you both mentioned leaders, you mentioned agency leaders. What can agency leaders do to make situations like these go away?
You can hold yourselves accountable. And I will be, there's a couple of things, right? There's leadership on the day-to-day side. So for those people that manage teams of, or disciplines, or teams of juniors, and you know, you're just taking them out for coffee to tell them that they're doing a good job, you yourself are doing a poor job. If you're not giving people feedback on how to make themselves better, and the reality is if you don't know how to make them better, then A, management is not for you. B, the responsible thing would be to put them in a position where they can get the resources and the learnings that they need to become better. The second thing is leadership from a diversity and inclusion perspective. And I'll be the one, I don't care, you can fight me later if you want to, but like there's a lot of agencies and a lot of people within agencies that look at D&I as a PR pulpit, that it's just an easy thing for you to talk about because it's easy to say I'm the good person that wants inclusivity. But when you walk into the hallways at your agencies, there are far too many people that are reporting incidents and mistreatments in their exit interviews that you don't even attack. Like there's a lot of people not here that are about that life, so to speak. And so I think accountability is important because a lot of times we'll sit on these panels and we'll talk about what we as the employees can do, what we as the juniors can do, what we as the creatives or producer or junior account people can do. And we've been doing it. We get classes, they teach us in school how to prepare ourselves to speak or not speak, so it's good for you, but nobody gets trained on how to be a manager. Nobody gets trained on how to be empathetic. Nobody gets trained on what to do with those exit interviews that go unanswered and unseen. And I feel like that is the biggest missing piece that we have right now, because there's enough of us on the ground and there's enough of you in the C-suite and on the executive level, but there's nobody doing anything about the rest of us in the middle that are having the hardest times and literally cannot stand to wake up to walk into your agencies.
What advice do you have to those that feel voiceless, that feel like their power has been taken by these unfortunate situations that they've gone through, specifically in this room in advertising? Like, how do we empower the voiceless? How do we empower those women?
So first of all, if you feel like you're voiceless, news break, you are not voiceless, you do have a voice. So what you need to do is get your power back. As simple as that. If you feel, I understand that not everybody is outspoken. Some people are shy, some people don't want to stir the pot. That's totally okay. We all have different roles to play in here. Everyone. There are people like me and Kai who are going to say something, who are going to start that, I'm going to call it revolution because it sounds great. So we are going to do that. We are going to say things. We're going to hold people accountable. We're going to be the people in the forefront, right? And then there's the next step. The next step, if you feel like you can't speak up, find people like you that you can speak to. It's really, really important that you understand that this isn't you. This is everybody, and not to have like a pity party, but just to express yourself. You don't want to hold it in. The second thing, if you can't find anybody to speak to in your organization or in your industry, if you can't find anybody, then you need to start setting boundaries and protecting your energy, right? So you have to decide, what's my boundary? What is it that I can't let people do to me? What is it that I can't deal with? And you have to voice that. So for example, a good boundary would be, you leave at 6 or 7 every night to go have dinner with your family. That's a solid boundary. It should be unshakable. That you decide that's your boundary, you gotta protect your energy. A lot of times I hear people say, but I gave 110%, and I'm like, that's because you gave 110%. If you gave 110%, first of all, there's only 100. But if you give everything to this job, then you have nothing left. And when you have nothing left, then you start sucking at your job. And now they have a reason to say, see, you're not performing. So think about how much you're bringing into the work and set boundaries. Your life is not just your work. You need to cultivate your friendships, your family, you need to live your life. So divide it and set boundaries around that. That's the least you can do. And if none of these, you can't do any of these things and you feel completely lost and completely in despair, then you need to leave. You need to conquer your fear and get out. It's not, I'm sure you all saw Get Out. It's like that. When I saw Get Out, I was like, oh my God, that's like advertising.
Yeah, it is like
it's
that.
the Sunken place. Oh my God, this is exactly like advertising. No, seriously. So you need to save yourself, because the second your mental health starts deteriorating, then you're in a whole other lot of trouble. I've been there. Don't do it. Get out. If you can't find anyone to talk to, if you can't set your boundaries, if you're feeling like you're going down the spiral, you need to leave. And you have to just trust. You have to trust in your worth, you have to trust in your power, and you have to trust in your ability to get another job. I mean, you live in New York, there's a billion jobs. Also, you're not alone. Look how many people are here who can help you. We can help you. Just don't sit there and fester in this toxicity, because it is just not worth it.
I think yes, all of that. And I think that there are going to be some people that are like, okay, well, how do I find my voice? And how do I set my boundaries? And how do I muster up the confidence to tell people I'm leaving at 7 when you know damn well that deck is due at 8 o'clock and whoever it is that's about to tear through that deck is about to make you stay till 10. And all of those things happen, and all of those things can happen. And I think what is important to know is what I said earlier about recognizing what you bring to the table. Like everybody's not going to tell you your value. A lot of times we feel like somebody's doing us a favor by giving us a job, and sometimes maybe they are. But in addition to just giving us this job that is helping us to live our best ratchet lives at happy hour and paying rent occasionally, it's also important to recognize that like they hired you for a position that no one else is filling right now. So if you feel voiceless, it's because you feel that you're replaceable, which in the long term, you absolutely are. You run outside, you get hit by the M15, you already know what's about to be up on the careers page at your job. And like you say it and we laugh, but we also know it's true. However, in that immediate moment, if you are not individually at your 100%, and I tell this to all of the creatives I've worked with, all of the discipline teams as a producer and a project manager that I work with, if you're not at your 100, if you're sick with the flu, I can't even use you, because I can't even ask you for your stretch goal. If you know that it fills you up to go to dinner with your family, and I'm telling you at 6:45 you can't go, guess what I know I can't get from you the next day? Your best 100. But in owning that, and owning that you need to do certain, you gotta use one of your mandated PTO days to get your hair done. You should use it. And you don't have to be sorry for that. That is part of your benefits package. They have to give you time off. They have to respect if you have religious holidays, or they will have a hell of a lawsuit on their hands if you really about that life. People have to respect your boundaries, but you also have to own that you deserve those things. And then the next piece to it is having the conversations ahead of time. Also, you do your due diligence to let them know, hey, I have strong opinions. I like to share them from time to time. Don't have one right now, just want you to know for future reference. I can't work on Saturdays because of my religious beliefs. I'm happy to do whatever other additional plan you want to add on to there. You can totally do that. Or just, I don't do this, and I do, it's important for you to own the value you bring to the table, know that they need you, know that you have boundaries, discuss them ahead of time, and then go forth and do as Mariam says, and take the time for yourself. Self-care is important.
Yeah, and calculate your risks. Calculate your risks. If you feel that, okay, it's time for me to go, really think about all right, how much do I have in savings? Really?
How long is it going to take me to get it into savings?
Exactly. And I mean, I'm not saying, have $1 million stacked up, then quit your job, because you'll never make $1 million if you work after. But definitely calculate your risk and kind of weigh out what options do you want to just take time off period to kind of refresh your brain and your mind and your life Or do you want to just like kind of jump into a new job? Like, those are all things that you kind of have to kind of self-tabulate in your mind, because only you know what you're going through. Only you know your expenses. Like, you know, like Kai said, you like to have a ratchet time, you know, that comes with a price tag. So
Yes, it
really
does.
think about how you can calculate that. So, right.
Hi, I'm Rachel. First of all, thank you
Hey,
all
Rachel.
three of you for being here. Hi. So, I've been thinking a lot about this concept of emotional tax, and for those of you who don't know what that is, essentially it's the idea that, can you hear me? By the way?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Essentially it's the idea that as a woman or a person of color, you have this thing throughout life where you're constantly, or not maybe constantly, but sometimes educating other people about your experiences, and that can be very, very exhausting for those people who have to constantly do that. So my question to all three of you is, I'm making these assumptions, so feel free to correct me, but when you have to manage or deal with that emotional tax, you mentioned, Mariam, setting these boundaries, so how do you set those boundaries and how do you deal with it, both personally or even in the industry?
When it comes to explaining like our experiences to others, what I've done in the past, sometimes when I got tired of saying the same thing over and over again, I just sent an article by email. You know, it might seem a little passive aggressive, but again, it's not my job to educate on basic, you know, things. So I sent an article, I'm like, hey, something you said earlier that wasn't okay. It's totally cool with me, but I need you to read this and internalize it. Thank you very much. See you later.
There's emotional tax from like the, oh, I don't want to have to explain my hair thing, right? There's also, I find there's an emotional tax in finding that when you're not unheard and continuing to having to explain why your position should be heard. For example, you're working on a project and there's an insight that comes across the table that you know for a fact is just dead wrong. Or for you account people out there and project people out there, somebody's telling you, yeah, we can build a 50-page website, back end, front end in 2 days. We can totally do that. And you know damn well you don't have the resources or the money or even a developer on your staff, right? And you get tired of telling people what is feasible or what is right or what is accurate. And what I've done over the years to deal with that is sometimes I just let people fail. Quite frankly, I will let you be wrong. I will let you be wrong and I will let you get burned. Because clearly my voice isn't powerful enough for you in any of these moments to help you make a good decision. But you know what will be good for you? Some failure. Failure works for everybody. Blessings work for everybody. Time Hop is great because Time Hop showed me a moment maybe 5 years ago where I tweeted, it's so good, y'all. It's so good. I tweeted that, isn't it funny that my manager just had to tell my head of technology and my head of whomever else strategy that I was right about something a week ago. I guess they'll listen now. And they did, quite frankly, they did moving forward. But like in that moment, like sometimes you really just gotta let people learn for themselves because it's not, you can educate people, but it's up to them if they wanna receive it.
Also, you can decide when you feel like educating, and if you don't, then don't. You don't have to explain yourself. I think a lot of people are used to us always, you know, educating, and they get used to, you know, the free information. But at some point, like they have to walk in their own feet, you know, stop crawling and walk and learn on their own. So by you kind of just setting that boundary, like you don't have to explain yourself basically, and let them figure out on your own. And failing, I agree, failing is great. It helps everyone learn.
And just to add to that, because you're talking about like emotional tax and all that stuff, I personally feel like setting the tone either at the beginning of every day, at the beginning of every week, kind of like, look, this is how it's going to go. Or especially if you're in that position to set the tone, then like lay it down, lay that hammer down and be like, you know what, this is how it's going to go, and we're not going to let any negativity like kind of block us in the way of whatever goal we're trying to achieve. So it's very important setting the tone. Every time that I step into a room, I make sure that the tone has to be positive. And if it's going left, we steer it back to going right. Now, am I saying is that easy? No. But if you want things to go positively and you want people to be respected and understood and all that other good stuff, you have to set the tone. And they have to pay if they fall out of line, that's when they pay that tax. You charge them for it, like you were out of line. You were straight up out of line, and you let them know. So it's definitely about setting the tone.
I'm Tracy Bush. I'm just curious, Kai. In the survey, you said something about people really caring about individuals versus groups and generations. What, in your mind, separates the people who are caring about the individuals versus the ones who are really going to care and push and move forward the generation? And I don't mean this in like a big, presidential race, but I mean it in like our daily lives. How can you take that step from bettering the person to actually make the group, the team, the generation?
I think it's the difference between being a boss and being a leader. And I think bosses want to manage individuals. I want to make you better. And I believe that leaders want to make everything, the institution greater, their lives greater, your lives greater, people that they've never met, people that are on their way into the industry. I think as a leader, you have to be the example. So it's about what am I doing to affect change or to exert greatness or to set the standard and set the tone, like Kenny said, where being a boss is, that's my protege. And that's the only person you care about. Yeah, that's my mentee. No, don't worry about that. I know they're working late, but like, we're about to go get dinner. No, it's on me. Meanwhile, the rest of your team is hungry, working on this pitch. And a lot of people do that, and I think it becomes absent-minded, because people are absent-minded of it because it's like, it's maybe overwhelming, I guess, for some people to think about more than just themselves and maybe one other person. I don't say that with shade, and I know it came out that way in Freudian slip, I guess, but like, I guess it's very overwhelming for people to think beyond themselves, but when we work in institutions that employ and provide the livelihoods for so many thousands of people, I don't think and maybe this is just from a perspective of a project manager and a producer, like I can't afford to let the entirety of the organization fail because my success is based on all of your success. If one of you fail, I fail. If all of you fail, I fail. And therefore, I need to be able to be that beacon and that compass to guide us in the right direction if and only if you'll trust me to do so.
I had a chief talent officer of mine at one point tell me that she did not believe that anybody should have diversity and inclusion in their title. That she felt as though it was everybody else's responsibility to own D&I, not just one individual person. And the conversation I had with her was, why do we have a CEO, right? Why do we have a finance person? Because ultimately they're accountable for X, Y, and Z happening, right? And they make sure that the masses or the people that report to them actually get it done. So my question for you is, based upon your experience in the industry, what do you feel? And you touched a little bit about the PR aspect of D&I, right? Like, we've all been to the ad color, the big party, which it really is. Let's be clear.
I had a great time.
It is a great time.
I've been like 5 times.
Yes, you're right.
Got a table of fun, right? What do we feel about really what the people that are positioned and empowered to be diversity or individual inclusion and cultural inclusion, what do we really feel like they can do?
Many things. I will go. So the idea, and there are a few agencies, a few which we've touched on in the podcast. Shout out to Mixed Company Podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, all that. We've touched on this before, and I'm gonna just call it out. Like, that's just such a very easy thing to say. We should all be responsible for D&I. Well, if we were all responsible for D&I, we wouldn't be here, or would we? And we are here today, and there's something happening I heard on Fishbowl tomorrow, and there was something last week at Havas. Like, this idea that it's everybody's job, well then everybody's getting it wrong. So we need somebody who can not only be accountable, but also tie the diversity and inclusion objectives to the overall business objectives to make sure that the whole reason you have somebody in charge is so that they can hold everybody else accountable. It has to be number one on somebody's list. It's not gonna be, D&I is not gonna be number one priority on the chief, whatever your title is, list, if it doesn't apply to you. And you don't have empathy, and you don't care about all the people that work with you and for you. So it's real cute to say that we don't need it, because she might be sitting real good, and her Christmas tree is probably really big because she can afford it, or whatever you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just such an easy thing to say, and I think accountability is it. Holding yourself accountable, holding everybody else accountable, having empathy. Everybody's not going to be your friend. It doesn't make them less of a human. And looking to see how we can all help each other move towards success, because if as resources we are all successful, then, look at all the holding companies. Look at their numbers this quarter. Like, if we're all successful, the business is successful. What a thought.
Last question, Tasha.
It's okay. Let's get Tasha.
Get Tasha.
We can talk later.
Tasha Rocks.
Hi, I'm Tasha Gilroy. I am the Director of Inclusion and Community.
Yes.
If y'all
don't clap for that, y'all are so rare.
So the question about having someone responsible, yes, there is someone like me at several agencies, and we are held accountable, not only internally in how we are bringing in talent, focusing on making sure people are getting promoted and getting the development that they need, or just being a resource for someone to come and talk to. So for folks who feel like you may not be ready to have certain conversations with other folks in HR, it's helpful when you have someone like me there that you can actually come and have a conversation with, who can understand the plight and maybe have a separate kind of conversation outside of a generalist or someone who might be having a typical role dealing with employee relations in HR. I feel like some agencies do get away with saying, yeah, it's everybody's problem, everybody needs to be focused on inclusion, but that's not really facts. That doesn't really, the bottom line, the numbers don't match up, the ROI never matches up when you do that, right? The other part about inclusion is that facts, too many agencies do see it as a separate cool thing. Oh, look how cool this is, culture stuff. Oh, they do these talks, they have these events, great. No, it's a talent strategy, plain simple. And it has to roll up into the talent strategy of the organization. Because bottom line is you will be asked at some point, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but a client will come and say, you know what, we care about stuff like this. What are you doing? How are you focusing? How do you get your talent? And where are you getting them from? So someone, again, has to be able to stand up and say, this is the strategy and this is how we're going about it, right? But on the flip side, the question that I wanted to actually say, or the comment that I kind of wanted to say is, for folks like me, I almost feel like I'm part of the problem in that we have, most promising students, we have MAPE, we have all these other programs, and the idea is, come in, come change the world, we're here, you're gonna make a difference. And we sell this dream of, you're gonna be that generation that's gonna fix it, right? And I've been doing this for 12 years, so I had the privilege of seeing several groups come through. And by now, I should have 50 million people in mid-level and senior level roles that I can tap into. Here's my talent source right here, because they came through MAPE and this and this and this, and these huge alum groups, right? But you all are opting out, right? Just in the last 4 months or so, I heard about number 8 today. And so for me, I have to kind of self-reflect and say, am I part of the problem? Am I representing this dreamland, this promised land that you all will never get to, or that there's this glass ceiling that's happening here and not here, and how do I rectify that?
There's just not enough of you.
Yeah.
There's too many people that
Only
will
one,
come.
Tasha.
There's too many people that will come to events to get drinks and just hang out and not actually really want to make a change. There's too many people that are just here for free food. There's too many people that are just here for free press. There's free press. There's not enough of you, and we need more of you.
And also, Tasha, I don't think, again, what she said, like it's not your sole responsibility. Again, you're trying to solve a problem that you didn't create. So if we backtrack a little bit, it's like, what is this problem coming from? Well, it's coming from America in general, you know, as simple as that. So it's so deep. And we're seeing it, of course, coming out now, thanks to, you know, our 45, or their 45. And so we're seeing it come out more, and I feel like people like us, we're seeing all this stuff, and we're like, there's no time to waste. We need to keep moving forward. So it's not that they don't want to be in the agency world, and it's just that the promised land is so far away that there is other outlets that we can get what we want, right? And just being 1 year being out in the industry, I'm blown away by all the things I was able to do in just 1 year. So again, I don't think it's your problem to solve. You're just facilitating and helping. You're just like the rest of us. But there is a bigger issue that people need to, the perpetrators, they need to take it upon themselves. It's inner work. This is inner ugly work that we all have to go through in order to evolve as humans. And that's what needs to happen. And that's what's not happening on a country level, on a global level. And that's a way bigger conversation, but that's how I see it. There is gonna be no change until the perpetrators decide that, you know what, we fucked up, let's look within and heal. So unless that happens, this is just gonna be, you know, history repeating itself, unfortunately.
Yes, so I'd like to first call for a round of applause for this panel. They brought songs, I mean, they make you feel. Mariam came out with the mask off stuff. I mean, we had all types of stuff going on here. But I will have to bid everyone adieu because we do have to get out of this room in a few minutes. But in that time, please feel free to get in touch with who you can. If you have any questions that you were not able to, or maybe didn't want to ask in public, send them to truthsessions1114@gmail.com. Okay, this is one event, but this is not the last of this conversation by any stretch of the imagination. So keep the conversation going until we get to topic 6. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.